Rupert, one short question, please.
Okay, that's good. My question, I think, is for Andrew. I see you're a passionate Newcastle supporter, which great passionate football club. Love it. I also see you spent 23 years in the civil service, and you've worked in two of the worst performing departments, the DWP and HMRC. As we know, the DWP's accounts have been qualified, I think I'm right in saying, for 37 consecutive years. Now, my question to you is, how are you actually helping these bodies to improve? Because once you become used to having your accounts qualified, unlike the private sector again, where your bankers start to get worried, your suppliers start to get worried, your credit lines start to dry up. That doesn't happen in government. So what are you doing to actually help these people who seem to have their accounts regularly qualified? What are you doing to help them avoid that?
Lots of stuff, using the experience of my time in the civil service. It's actually 27 years that I've worked in the civil service. And I've done a variety of roles in the government finance function, not all just financial accounting. I've done management accounting, finance business partnering as well. So my career spans different roles, hasn't all been involved in the qualifications attached to those different organisations. But from that experience...
Could I have asked James maybe, but yeah. I don't know.
Sorry, I was just going to finish answering. So basically, my role is to work with the finance community across government to prioritise removing qualifications and timely accounts, as well as having effective finance functions. So things that we do, like I've mentioned, a lot of the training, the networking, the best practice. We do a lot of recruitment. So we do a lot of recruitment to bring qualified people into key roles within government. That's both private sector and internal candidates as well. So there's lots that happens there to do that. The other thing that we do is an end-of-year finance assessment. So we've got a set of criteria that within Treasury we will assess and rate departments against. So that'll be things like what is the quality of your business cases like, how good is your financial forecasting. So we do all of that activity, and then what we can do when we're doing those assessments, we know what the best practice is, we know about issues that other departments have encountered, and then we try and share that and give recommendations for departments to improve their finance function.
37 consecutive years suggests that's not working. So do you need to do something different?
So you make a really important point. I think the point would be that to a certain DWP and HMRC are qualified on the basis of fraud and error, something you've pushed on specifically, and we've given evidence before. I think the point I would make to you is, while some of the qualification is almost inherent in the systems that they run, there is never ever going to be any complacency about accepting fraud and error for year after year. And there have been really quite very significant pushes to reduce that. The one that I'm closest to is in HMRC, where we have put an awful lot more people into the compliance side of HMRC to push down fraud and error, to close the tax gap. And I think the stat is that they've reduced that by over 850 million compared to where it was in 2021. This is money that the taxpayer otherwise doesn't have to provide government, and its reduction is deeply important to us, and we work really, really hard on reducing fraud and error, even if that qualification persists, and the NAO, the experts, but I think it is almost inherent in some of what DWP and HMRC does that their systems will have some forms of fraud and error, but it's trying to reduce that to the absolute minimum, and we do have very tangible progress to show there.
Well, I finally, before the chairman cuts me off, I just think with the DWP and my knowledge of the DWP and HMRC, I think they are structurally now flawed, both of them. So I think you've got to do a lot from a governance point of view, from an actual sort of a cultural point of view, to change the way they operate. So I actually, if you look, DWP, you've got Department of Education, or HM, if you look at figure 4, I think you've got a cultural problem in these organisations, and the key I think the committee would like to understand is, how are you going to change that culture? I think DWP is deeply flawed culturally. I think HMRC is deeply flawed culturally. How are you going to change that? You're not going to change the outcome. 37 consecutive years? No. It's become ingrained. And it's a...
Rupert, we will cover both those, I have no doubt, in many future hearings, but just a briefish answer.
Yeah,
the culture, I think, is a really important question.
I would point to the very aggressive and important measures that both departments have taken to reduce fraud and error, which must be part of a cultural change that never accepts an ingrained level of fraud and error as okay or good enough. And I would point to so HMRC is the one I know best. We can see in higher tax revenues what you get from really bearing down on that fraud and error, and there's 850 million more tax by less fraud and error by the actions that HMRC have taken since 2021. The cultural point, though, is absolutely important, and I think I would push back that there's any form of complacency in that regard.
Thank you very much, Rupert. And now, if we could go, please, to Clive.
Right. In terms of the assistance that is given to departments to get this right, you've indicated that you see this probably as an increased priority compared to where you've been in the past. Is that fair?
Yes, I think the government finance function is much more interventionist and helpful than it has been in the past.
I think we had a very helpful explanation from Philip Duffy about how the problems that were in the Environment Agency have been addressed. Clearly, there's a big spend there and it's important issues, but there are a lot of small bodies that really perhaps have been asked to do too much, are they? I mean, we've looked at this before in the committee. I think we're waiting for a response. Could the requirements on some of the smaller bodies be reduced to the point that they don't really have to do as much work on this and could get their accounts in a more timely way without as much effort being put in?
So I think two things. One, yes, is I think the answer that proportionality comes to the fore there. I think the committee's push on not having overbearing requirements on small bodies, so they're spending all their time, delivering the requirements, not doing what they're there to do, is welcome. We agree with the standards there. So yes, I think we can reduce the requirements on them. And then, of course, the larger government finance function and the larger best practice can come in and help them even more than the very large departments who've got really rather advanced internal capability and capacity.
How that...
I mean, the details. Because this links to the hearing that we had in January, doesn't it, around the small body. So we are doing a piece of work to think about what those options could look like, is per the recommendation from the committee. We're also going to take the opportunity, just going back to Sir Geoffrey's earlier point around IFRS 16 and in other sort of how we do accountancy within government. We're going to take the opportunity to just think about what other opportunities there may be for proportionality in terms of financial accounting across government. So we're going to look to do that review and report back in the timescales agreed with the committee. So we are looking for some specific things to do then.